All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive.
You know we love to go deep on the news of the day, and today we're going to look at something that's been making a lot of waves online. It's an interview with JD Vance,
Right.
GOP VP candidate, and it's not your typical political interview.
Yeah, this is a weird one.
He sat down with comedian Tim Dillon,
Okay.
and they had this really interesting conversation about all sorts of hot-button issues, and the whole thing happened while Donald Trump was on a completely separate podcast with Joe Rogan.
It's like a weird parallel universe of political commentary going on.
Absolutely. I mean, it's fascinating to see how these political figures are choosing to engage with voters these days.
Definitely. I think it says a lot about the current state of our media landscape and how politicians are adapting to it.
Right. So we've got Vance on this comedy podcast, and he's hitting all the expected points, right? You've got immigration, you've got healthcare for transgender people, tariffs, trade policy.
The usual suspects.
Yeah. But then he tries to do this kind of image makeover.
Oh, really?
You know, he wants to present himself as this harmless family man.
Well, that's interesting considering some of his past statements.
Right. I mean, I'm sure our listeners are familiar with some of the more controversial things he said, but he's trying to soften his image.
I see.
And then he goes after Kamala Harris, saying that she, sucks all the fun out of politics.
Oh, wow.
He even talks about her, wagging her finger at Trump during the debates. You know, trying to paint this picture of her as, the uptight schoolmarm.
Yeah, that's definitely a tactic we see a lot, trying to make your opponent seem unrelatable.
And then comes the part that really surprised me, the Cheney family.
The Cheneys. What are they up to these days?
Well, Liz Cheney has been very vocal in her criticism of Trump.
Right. I remember that.
And both Vance and Dillon used this interview to attack her and Dick Cheney.
Wow. Okay.
For supporting Harris, they're basically accusing them of being hypocrites.
Yeah.
You know, for standing up for democracy while also being part of this, old guard political establishment.
Right. So they're using the Cheneys to kind of make a broader point about the state of politics today.
And they do it all with this, really thick layer of sarcasm.
Oh, really? How?
At one point, Dillon says, I love Dick Cheney and the whole Cheney family.
He did?
He did. And then he even starts talking about, Iraq and Abu Ghraib.
Oh, my God.
Obviously, he doesn't actually love Dick Cheney. It's satire, right?
Right. Of course.
But it's pretty biting satire.
Yeah. I mean, invoking Iraq and Abu Ghraib, that's pretty heavy stuff.
And then Vance chimes in and says, if you really care about democracy and human rights, Dick Cheney is your guy.
Oh, wow. The sarcasm is dripping.
It's so over the top, and I think that's part of the point, They're trying to be provocative to get people talking.
And it's working. Clearly, we're talking about it.
Exactly.
But it does raise questions about, the role of humor in politics.
Yeah. Is this an effective way to persuade voters, or is it just entertainment?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Right.
Comedy can be a powerful tool for getting people's attention.
Yeah.
Making them think about things in a different way.
Absolutely. And I think in this case, Vance and Dillon are trying to cap into this sense of disillusionment that a lot of voters feel towards the political establishment.
They're trying to present themselves as the outsiders, the ones who aren't afraid to poke fun at the powers that be.
Right. And using someone like Dick Cheney as a symbol of that establishment.
Exactly. He's like the ultimate insider.
Yeah. So what do you think? What does this interview tell us about the current state of political discourse?
I think it shows how the lines between politics and entertainment are becoming increasingly blurred.
Yeah.
And how politicians are using humor and satire to connect with voters in new ways.
Definitely something to think about.
Absolutely.
Well, that's our deep dive into JD Vance's very interesting interview.
What do you think about this mix of comedy and politics? Let us know in the comments.
And don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you back here for another deep dive.
Soon.